What is going on, guys? I am back today for another topic video, and I thought today's topic would be interesting because I see a lot online about, like, should this movie get a sequel? What movie should get a sequel? Does this necessarily need a sequel? And I think the sequel talk is always really interesting because there are movies, in my opinion, that I've watched in my life that I feel like there is no need for a sequel to this film, and there are also films in my life that I've watched that I'm like, damn, the sequel is actually better than the original film. And so today I thought that it would be fun for me to give you guys a list of movies that I think the sequels are better than the original film. And I know that that doesn't always happen. There are sometimes that sequels are absolutely abysmal, but I thought it would be fun today to let you guys know a few of the ones that I think are better. And let's get into it right now. So first up, I want to get into horror a little bit. And there's a ton of horror franchises out there, but I'm going to talk about Child's Play 2 today and how I think Child's Play 2 is significantly better than the original Child's Play movie. And there are a lot of films in the Child's Play franchise, sequel-wise, that I think are better than the original. And the reason I think 2 is better than the original is that it takes these characters and this world that has already been established and just builds on them more. Obviously, with the exception of director changes, Don Mancini has been a part of this franchise for the entire time that it has existed. And I think because he has been a part of writing the world and creating the world, that it has been relatively consistent for the entire runtime of the franchise. But in the second film, we bring back the original characters from the first film, but because we already know them, we can just grow on them as characters and grow on them as people. I think Brad Dourif is given the ability to just have a lot more fun in this movie, where his one-liners are really over the top. He's a lot more playful with the character than in the first movie, where the first movie just feels like he's kind of trying to find his footing a little bit. That's the thing I love so much about this movie. Also, for a slasher film, it has amazing atmosphere. It builds up the tension really well, to where the stakes at the beginning of the film, they kind of give you an idea of where they're going to go, to when you get to the third act blow up in this that takes place in this toy factory. It is one of my favorite slasher showdowns that exists in the history of slasher movies, and it's also just one of the most fun films I've ever watched. And when I go back and revisit this franchise, I always enjoy the original Child's Play, but I always think to myself, the second film really just improved on the material in every single way. It's one of my favorite slasher sequels ever, and I just think that it succeeds in doing everything that the first film wanted to do better than the first film. Up next, shifting gears a little bit, is Toy Story 2. Yes, I love Toy Story 2, and I love Toy Story 2 more than the original Toy Story. I think the addition of the new characters from Woody's Roundup add a little bit more into this world and into the story. I love the conflict between Buzz and Woody in the first movie, but I think the new conflict added into this, especially Woody being separated from everyone, being given the option to go to this museum with these toys that, you know, belong to the same world as him, you know, in his day-to-day life. He's with all these different toys that come from different backgrounds and different worlds, and he's given the opportunity to be with these people who kind of understand him more, and looking for that sense of belonging and understanding with people who get it. I think it gets very thoughtful in its material, and this movie, especially Jesse's plot arc, is very dark and dramatic when you look at it, especially when kids watch it. I remember really when I was a young kid just being moved by it, and it really kind of having an emotional impact on me. And that's not to take away from the brilliance of the original Toy Story, but I think that what they were able to do with the second film just grows on everything that I loved about the first film. And Toy Story 2 is still my favorite in the franchise. I think it is one of the best animated movies ever made, and I think it'll always be my favorite over the original. Up next, I'm not a big Star Wars guy. I don't talk about Star Wars a lot on my channel because I'm kind of burnt out on it, to be quite honest. But I love the original trilogy, and I love Empire Strikes Back more than the original. Empire Strikes Back, this isn't really like a hot take or anything. Most people love The Empire Strikes Back, and what's so great about it is you're introduced to these characters in this world in A New Hope that is built up really well. It's a very engaging and immersive story, but everything about Empire is better. I think the blend of drama, action, and comedy is some of the best to ever exist in all of cinema. I think the way that the reveal of the story is given to you is just brilliantly executed. Obviously, when people see this movie for the first time, it always really takes them by surprise, and that's a testament to just how incredible the film is. I love the action set pieces in this. I love all of the performances. I think Harrison Ford especially really gets time to shine in this movie. He's great. Mark Hamill does a great job. Everyone that's in this movie is fantastic, and I don't talk about Star Wars a lot on my channel. The original trilogy meant a lot to me growing up, but I always thought Empire was a better movie than A New Hope. I still think that to this day when I revisit the franchise, just because I think that blend of everything is so much better. And in A New Hope, you have to spend a lot of time building up those characters. There's a lot more exposition in it, where Empire's able to kind of get to the point right out of the gate, and I think that's what makes the movie so incredible, and that's why I think it still stands the test of time as one of the greatest sequels to ever exist. Up next, and this might be a hot take, but Blade Runner 2049 from Denis Villeneuve, a movie that I think is better than the original Blade Runner in every way. I watched the original Blade Runner when I was relatively young and just revisited it again for the first time in years earlier this year. I thought that it was good. I thought that the world building was good. But aside from that, it gets pretty boring in its exposition. I think there are a lot of moments that could be trimmed down and cut out. I think what helps the movie live up to, what it's praised for today is the incredible visuals that the film has. It really does stand the test of time at creating such a unique and immersive world. But 2049 is Villeneuve taking everything from that film and expanding on it. The most fascinating part about Blade Runner is this idea of artificial intelligence becoming sentient and getting to a point that you could perceive artificial intelligence as a human being. And a lot of that is through Ryan Gosling's character and through Ana de Armas's character in the movie. And that's what really makes this stand up against the original. Obviously, with technological growth over the years, Villeneuve was able to create a visual spectacle. This is one of the most beautiful movies I've ever seen as far as cinematography is concerned. The color palettes in this thing are absolutely phenomenal. I love the world. I especially love towards the third act when you get out into that desolate desert area. It's just so beautifully shot. I love how vibrant the color palette is. I think the score to the movie really accompanies the film well. It succeeds in everything that it's trying to do, in my opinion, better than the original film did. Even though the runtime is longer, I feel like there's no time wasted. I don't feel like the movie gets boring. I feel like it's paced perfectly well, and it's a movie that I'm just going to grow to love more on each revisit. It's absolutely amazing, and I think about it all the time. Up next, I'm going to talk about the sequels to The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring. Both The Two Towers and Return of the King, I think, are superior films to Fellowship, and that's not any fault to Fellowship, but what's kind of difficult about talking about these sequels is that it's part of one large story. But The Two Towers and Return of the King give us better character development. They give us growth. They give us the characters' ups and downs. There's great action, great suspense set pieces, where Fellowship has to spend a lot of time building up the characters in the world to get you invested into what the story is going to be in Two Towers and Return of the King. Two Towers and Return of the King don't have to spend as much time doing that, which in my opinion makes those two films superior, because they're given more time to have fun and give you these big action set pieces, more casual dialogue between the characters, other than just making you sit through exposition to understand the world. And that's not to take away from the fact that I think that Fellowship is a phenomenal film. I just think because the two following it get more time to breathe and get more time to live and exist in that world, that they are superior films in my opinion. Up next, I gotta jump into horror again and talk about A Nightmare on Elm Street 3: Dream Warriors. I absolutely love Dream Warriors. I think Dream Warriors is better than the original Nightmare on Elm Street in almost every way. I still think the original Nightmare on Elm Street is a brilliant movie. I love the establishment of Freddy Krueger. I love the character. I think the character of Freddy Krueger is very entertaining. He's also really sinister, and I think that's what makes his character so great, is that he has these quippy lines of dialogue, but he's also very evil, and he does horrible things. What I love about Dream Warriors is Robert Englund had now had some time to kind of settle into that character and to build that character up into what everyone was going to know him for. And in this movie, he is just unhinged to the T. He does some of the most absurd things that you could imagine in Dream Warriors. I love the visual effects in this movie. I love the story and how silly it can get in moments, how dark and disturbing some of the kill sequences are. And I think it's the perfect blend of what Nightmare on Elm Street is supposed to be. Where the first movie is dark, but I feel like the execution isn't as solid as the third film is. And every time I revisit this franchise, I love 3 even more. It's just such a fantastic film. And then I think I want to end it with Evil Dead 2, one of my favorite sequels of all time. I think what Sam Raimi was able to do with the original Evil Dead was incredibly impressive, but what he was able to do with Evil Dead 2 is even more impressive. I love the balance of comedy and horror in that film. I think it just goes to places that I never would have expected. The practical effects in Evil Dead 2 are absolutely phenomenal. The performance that Bruce Campbell gives is unhinged, and the movie does get very disturbing and sinister in a way that I don't think a lot of people expected it to in that time period. And it's just a movie that stands the test of time. It's one of the best movies ever made. Every time I revisit this thing, I love it more and more. And it's a sequel that really could stand up on its own. You don't have to see the original film to understand how incredible the second film is. And it's a movie I recommend to everyone, especially if you're a horror lover. So what are some sequels that you love more than the original? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to read which films you think outstand the original films, because I always think it's fun to see people's opinions on that. As always, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, it helps me out a lot and lets me know the type of content you're looking for. I'm always putting out new material and look forward to getting more out for you in the near future. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching and have a great rest of your day.